What happens when Hollywood's golden boy walks into what he thinks is a friendly late-night interview, only to discover the host has a completely different agenda? What happens when that same host decides to ambush his guest with loaded questions, designed to create controversy rather than conversation? Tonight, we're diving deep into the explosive confrontation that left audiences stunned and one A-list actor walking off set. This is the untold story of how a routine promotional appearance turned into a career-defining moment that exposed the ugly side of late-night television. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because you're not going to believe how this unfolds. The bright studio lights felt hotter than usual as Michael B. Jordan settled into the guest chair across from Jimmy Kimmel. The audience applause was still echoing through the studio when Kimmel flashed that trademark grin, the one that had made him millions, but tonight seemed to carry an edge that Michael couldn't quite place. "Michael B. Jordan, everybody," Kimmel announced, his voice carrying that familiar late-night cadence. "Thanks for being here, man. I gotta say, you look good. Really good. Almost too good if you know what I mean." Michael chuckled politely, adjusting his perfectly tailored suit jacket. "Thanks, Jimmy. Happy to be here. Always enjoyed the show." Right. Kimmel nodded, but there was something in his eyes that didn't match his smile. "So let's talk about your new movie. Another action flick where you're the hero saving the day. Tell me, Michael, do you ever get tired of playing the same character over and over again?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Michael's eyebrows raised slightly, but he maintained his composure. "I wouldn't say I play the same character, Jimmy. Each role brings its own challenges and complexities." "Complexities," Kimmel repeated, drawing out the word. "That's interesting because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you found a pretty comfortable formula. Muscular guy, saves the world, gets the girl, rinse and repeat." The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the usual playful banter they were accustomed to seeing on late-night television. Michael's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I think that's a pretty reductive way to look at it," Michael replied, his voice steady, but with a hint of steel. "Every project I choose has something meaningful to say. Whether it's Creed, Black Panther, or this new film, I'm always looking for stories that resonate with people." Kimmel leaned back in his chair, that grin never leaving his face. "Stories that resonate? Sure. But let's be honest here, Michael. You've been pretty vocal about representation in Hollywood, haven't you? About giving opportunities to people who look like you?" "Absolutely," Michael said, straightening in his chair. "Representation matters. It's important for young people to see themselves reflected in the stories we tell." Right, Kimmel nodded mockingly. "But isn't it interesting that you talk about representation while you're sitting there in a suit that probably costs more than most people make in a month? Isn't there something a little hypocritical about preaching equality from your Beverly Hills mansion?" The studio fell dead silent. Even the camera operators seemed to pause, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Michael's eyes narrowed, and for the first time since sitting down, his Hollywood polish cracked just enough to show the man underneath. "I'm sorry. What exactly are you trying to say, Jimmy?" Michael asked, his voice dropping to a lower register. "I'm not trying to say anything," Kimmel replied with exaggerated innocence. "I'm just asking questions. Isn't that what we do here? Ask the tough questions that other people are thinking, but are too polite to voice." "The tough questions," Michael repeated slowly. "Or are you just trying to create a moment for your show? Because there's a difference between journalism and whatever this is." Kimmel's grin widened. "Oh, so now I'm not a real journalist? That's rich, coming from someone who pretends to be other people for a living," the audience gasped audibly. Michael's hands gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles visibly tightening. "Pretends to be other people? Jimmy, what's your problem here? Did I do something to offend you, or is this just how you treat all your guests?" "My problem?" Kimmel laughed, But it was a cold sound. "I don't have a problem, Michael. I'm just tired of the act. The whole humble, grateful representation champion thing. We all know you're just another actor who got lucky, and now wants to lecture the rest of us about social issues." Michael stood up slowly, his imposing frame casting a shadow across Kimmel's desk. The audience held its collective breath, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. "You know what, Jimmy? I came here tonight thinking I was going to have a conversation with a professional. Instead, I'm sitting across from someone who seems to have some personal issue with me that I'm not even aware of." Kimmel's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Personal issue? No, no, no. This isn't personal, Michael. This is business. This is television. This is what happens when you step into the real world instead of your carefully curated PR bubble." "The real world?" Michael's voice rose slightly, his famous composure finally beginning to crack. "Jimmy, you sit behind this desk every night making jokes about people who actually go out and try to make a difference. When's the last time you did anything that mattered beyond getting a laugh?" The studio audience was completely silent now, watching this unprecedented confrontation unfold. Kimmel's producers in the booth were frantically signaling, but the host seemed oblivious, lost in whatever point he was trying to prove. "Make a difference?" Kimmel scoffed. "You make movies, Michael. You're not curing cancer. You're not ending world hunger. You're playing dress-up and pretending it's important." Michael took a step closer to the desk, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper but somehow carrying more weight than if he'd been shouting. "And you make fun of people. For a living, Jimmy. Tell me, which one of us is really making the world a better place?" The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Kimmel's face flushed red at Michael's pointed question, and for a moment, the host's carefully constructed facade slipped completely. "Making the world a better place?" Kimmel's voice cracked slightly as he leaned forward in his chair. "I've been doing this show for 20 years, Michael. 20 years of bringing joy and laughter to people's lives. What have you been doing? Looking good in front of a camera?" Michael's laugh was sharp and humorless. 20 years of what, Jimmy? 20 years of making fun of people who can't defend themselves? 20 years of cheap shots and easy targets? That's your legacy? Easy targets? Kimmel shot back, his composure completely gone now. "You think you're a hard target, Michael? You think because you've got muscles and a pretty face that makes you untouchable? Let me tell you something about hard targets. They don't need publicists to craft every word they say." The audience was completely transfixed, some pulling out phones to record despite the no-recording policy. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was two men having a very real, very ugly confrontation on live television. "Publicists?" Michael's voice was dangerously quiet. "Jimmy, every word coming out of your mouth right now is being fed to you by writers in your ear. You want to talk about authenticity? When's the last time you had an original thought that wasn't focus grouped and approved by network executives?" Kimmel's face went from red to purple. He ripped out his earpiece and threw it on the desk with a loud clatter. "There, no writers, no producers, just me and you, Michael. You want authentic? Let's get authentic." "Finally," Michael said, crossing his arms. "So tell me, Jimmy, what's this really about? Because I know this isn't about my movies or my career. This feels personal." Kimmel stood up abruptly, matching Michael's height as best he could. "You want to know what this is about? This is about entitlement. This is about actors like you who think, because you've been in a few successful movies, you get to lecture the rest of us about how the world should work. Entitlement?" Michael's voice rose in disbelief. "I grew up in public housing, Jimmy. I worked for everything I have. What's entitled about using whatever platform I've earned to speak up for people who don't have a voice?" "Oh, spare me the sob story," Kimmel sneered. "You think you're the first actor to come from nothing? You think your struggle is special? The difference is, the rest of us don't pretend we're saving the world when we're just trying to make a buck." Michael stepped closer to the desk, his presence commanding the entire studio. "So that's what this is about. You're bitter. You're angry that some of us actually care about something beyond the paycheck. Bitter? Kimmel laughed harshly. I'm realistic, Michael. I know what this business is. It's entertainment. It's not activism. It's not social change. It's not making the world better. It's giving people something to watch while they eat their dinner. And that's where you're wrong, Michael said firmly. Art matters, Jimmy. Stories matter. The way we represent people matters. The messages we send matter. Just because you've given up on believing that doesn't mean the rest of us have to. Kimmel's eyes narrowed dangerously. Given up? I haven't given up on anything. I've just stopped pretending that what we do here is more important than it actually is. You want to change the world? Become a politician. Become a teacher. Become a doctor. Don't stand there and tell me that playing make-believe is changing lives. Playing make-believe? Michael's voice was incredulous. Jimmy, do you have any idea how many young people have told me that seeing Black Panther changed how they see themselves? Do you know how many kids started believing they could be heroes because they saw someone who looked like them on screen? And how many of those kids are going to be disappointed when they realize the real world doesn't work like a Marvel movie? Kimmel shot back. How many are going to learn that being a hero isn't about having superpowers and a cool costume? Michael shook his head in disgust. You know what your problem is, Jimmy? You've become so cynical that you can't even recognize hope when you see it. You've spent so long tearing people down that you've forgotten what it feels like to build something up. Hope? Kimmel's voice dripped with sarcasm. Hope doesn't pay the bills, Michael. Hope doesn't put food on the table. Hope doesn't solve real problems in the real world. Neither does cynicism, Michael fired back. At least hope inspires people to try. Your cynicism just makes them want to give up before they start. The studio audience was completely silent, mesmerized by this raw, unfiltered exchange. Camera operators continued filming, knowing they were capturing something unprecedented in late-night television history. Kimmel moved around his desk, getting closer to Michael. You think you're inspiring people? You think wearing a cape in a movie makes you some kind of role model? Let me tell you what's really happening, Michael. You're selling them a fantasy. You're making them believe that if they just work hard enough, if they just believe enough, they can be anything they want to be. And that's a lie. Michael's jaw clenched tight. It's only a lie if you believe it is, Jimmy. Some of us still think people are capable of more than you're willing to give them credit for. Capable of more. Kimmel laughed bitterly. Look around you, Michael. Look at the world we live in. People are struggling to pay rent, struggling to feed their families, struggling just to get by. And your solution is to tell them to believe in themselves? To reach for the stars? That's not inspiration. That's delusion. And your solution is what? Michael demanded. To tell them nothing matters? To tell them not to bother trying? To tell them that hope is just a marketing tool? How is that helping anyone? Kimmel's face was twisted with frustration, and something deeper, something that looked almost like pain. My solution is reality, Michael. My solution is honesty. My solution is not filling people's heads with impossible dreams that are only going to lead to disappointment. Your solution is misery, Michael said quietly, but his words carried across the entire studio. Your solution is making sure everyone else is as unhappy as you are. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kimmel's entire body went rigid, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. For a moment, the studio was so quiet you could hear the hum of the cameras. Unhappy? Kimmel's voice was barely controlled. Rage. You think I'm unhappy? You think this is about my happiness? This is about truth, Michael. This is about not lying to people about what the world really is. No, Jimmy, Michael said, his voice steady and certain. This is about you being so afraid of disappointment that you've decided to disappoint everyone. First, this is about you being so scared of failing that you've convinced yourself trying is pointless. Kimmel took another step closer, his face inches from Michael's. "You don't know anything about me. You don't know what I've been through, what I've seen, what I've had to do to get where I am." "Then tell me," Michael challenged. "Stop hiding behind jokes and sarcasm and tell me what happened to you that made you this bitter." "Bitter?" Kimmel's laugh was hollow and broken. "I'll tell you what made me bitter, Michael. It was watching talented people, good people, get chewed up and spit out by this industry. It was seeing dreamers turn into addicts, idealists turn into sellouts, heroes turn into cautionary tales." Michael's expression softened slightly, but his voice remained firm. "And so your response was to become part of the machine that chews them up? Your response was to add to the cynicism instead of fighting it?" "My response was to survive," Kimmel snapped. "My response was to give people what they actually want instead of what they pretend they want. People don't want heroes, Michael. They want someone to tear down. They want someone to feel superior to. They want someone to blame for their problems." "That's what you want," Michael said quietly. "You're projecting your own darkness onto everyone else. Just because you've given up doesn't mean they have." Kimmel's composure finally shattered completely. "Given up? Given up? I've been carrying this show for 2 decades. I've been making people laugh when their world is falling apart. I've been there night after night, giving them something to smile about in a world that gives them nothing but reasons to cry. Don't you dare tell me I've given up." "Making people laugh at whose expense, Jimmy?" Michael's voice cut through Kimmel's outburst like a blade. "You've spent 20 years punching down, making jokes about people who are already struggling, already hurting. That's not healing anyone's pain. That's just spreading your own." The audience was completely captivated, witnessing something they had never seen before, something raw and real in a medium built on artifice and performance. Kimmel's eyes were wild now, his voice cracking with emotion. "You think you're so much better than me? You think because you play heroes on screen that makes you one in real life? Let me tell you something about real heroes, Michael. They don't need cameras rolling to do the right thing. And real villains," Michael replied coldly, "don't need an audience to tear people down. But here you are, doing it in front of millions of people every night. Villains?" Kimmel's voice rose to nearly a shout. "I'm the villain? I'm not the one standing here pretending to be something I'm not. I'm not the one selling false hope to desperate people. I'm not the one making millions while lecturing everyone else about inequality." Michael shook his head slowly. "You still don't get it, do you, Jimmy? This isn't about the money. This isn't about the fame. This is about using whatever platform you have to make things a little bit better instead of a lot worse." "Better?" Kimmel was almost screaming now. "You want to make things better? Then stop lying to people. Stop telling them they can be anything they want to be. Stop telling them that hard work pays off. Stop telling them that good things happen to good people. Because it's not true, Michael. None of it is true." "Maybe it's not true for you," Michael said, his voice carrying a sadness that seemed to echo through the entire studio. "Maybe you've experienced so much disappointment that you can't see past your own pain. But that doesn't give you the right to steal hope from everyone else." Kimmel staggered backward as if he'd been physically struck. "Steal hope? I'm not stealing anything. I'm protecting them from the same heartbreak I went through. I'm saving them from believing in something that's going to destroy them." "No, Jimmy," Michael said firmly. "You're destroying them first so they don't have the chance to be disappointed later. And that's not protection. That's cruelty." The studio was dead silent except for the quiet whir of cameras capturing every moment of this unprecedented breakdown. Kimmel looked around wildly, as if suddenly realizing where he was, what he'd done, how far he'd fallen. "You know what?" Michael said, straightening his jacket and stepping back from the desk. "I came here tonight to talk about a movie, to have a conversation, to maybe inspire a few people to believe in themselves a little bit more. Instead, I've spent the last 20 minutes watching a man tear himself apart on live television. Kimmel's face went white. Michael, No. Michael held up a hand. I'm done, Jimmy. I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with this show, and I'm done pretending that what just happened here was anything other than a sad man taking out his frustrations on someone who refuses to be as miserable as he is. Michael turned toward the exit, but paused and looked back at Kimmel one last time. I genuinely hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, Jimmy. I hope you find some peace. But I won't be part of whatever this was tonight. As Michael walked toward the exit, Kimmel called out desperately, "This is live television, Michael. You can't just walk away. You have a contract, you have obligations." Michael stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back one final time. "My only obligation is to myself and to the people who believe that tomorrow can be better than today. And right now, the best way I can honor that obligation is to walk away from someone who's trying to convince the world that it can't be." With that, Michael B. Jordan walked off the Jimmy Kimmel Live set, leaving behind a host whose carefully constructed world had just collapsed on live television, and an audience that had witnessed something they would never forget. The cameras kept rolling as Kimmel stood alone on his stage, the weight of his own words and actions settling on his shoulders like a heavy blanket. The silence stretched on until finally, mercifully, someone called for a commercial break. What do you think about this explosive confrontation? Have you ever seen anything like this on late-night television? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories that expose the real drama happening in Hollywood. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Michael B. Jordan was right to walk away? Or should he have stayed and continued the fight?